Here's a hard truth most leaders don't want to hear. Your AI deployment is not going to fail because of the model. It's not going to fail because you picked the wrong vendor or because your data scientists weren't good enough. It's going to fail for a reason nobody wants to say out loud in the boardroom. It's going to fail because the people in your organization won't let the data be seen. And if the data can't be seen freely across the org by anyone who needs it, then it can't be used to train anything. Not a model, not an agent, not a prediction. You cannot teach a machine to deliver results that fit your company's strategy if the truth about how your company actually works is locked inside a dozen fiefdoms that have every incentive to keep it locked. That's what I want to talk about today. I'm Hitesh Bagai, and this is Human-Centered Experience. So let's set the stage. Now, everywhere I go right now, the conversation is the same. Every executive team wants AI. They want the agents, they want the automation, they want the predictive engine that tells them where the business is leaking value, and they are right to want it. The technology is real, and the ones who get it working are going to pull away from the ones who don't. But here's where it gets interesting. Almost none of those conversations start where they should start. They start with the model, the tooling, the use case, and the actual thing that determines whether any of it works, whether the data is free enough to feed it. Nobody's talking about that because it's not a technology problem. It's a power problem. It's a culture problem. Let me tell you what I've seen when I've led transformation inside a very large enterprise. And when we set out to do something that sounds almost boring on paper, just look at how work actually flows through the organization using the data the systems were already generating. You would think that would be uncontroversial, right? Who could object to seeing the truth? A lot of people, it turns out, because in a big company, opacity is an asset. Think about it. For years, the way you demonstrated your importance was headcount. More people, more reports, more layers reporting to layers. It looked like productivity. But underneath, a lot of it was duplication. The same work being done 3 times in 3 places in shadows. Rework loops, nobody had ever measured processes that were quietly broken and had been for years. And the moment you turn on the data, the moment process intelligence makes that visible, all of that is exposed. Suddenly, everyone can see whose kingdom is real and whose is scaffolding. So, what do people do? They don't fight the technology. That would be too obvious. They fight the access. That's my data. My team owns that. You can't pull from that system without going through me. Now, think about this for a second. Whose data is it actually? This is the reframe I want you to sit with because it's the whole game. When a business unit leader says, that's my data, they're wrong. It was never theirs. The data belongs to the company. It was generated by the company's systems, doing the company's work, paid for by the company's shareholders. The individual leader was never the owner. At best, they were a custodian who quietly started acting like an owner because nobody ever challenged it. And that distinction, custodian versus owner, is not a semantic one. It's a decision rights problem. It's a question of who is allowed to see the truth about how work gets done. And in most organizations, that question has never been explicitly answered. It just got settled by default in favor of whoever controlled the system. Here's why this matters more now than it ever has. In the old world, that opacity was expensive but survivable. You lost some efficiency, you carried some duplication. The customer felt some of the rework, but the business limped along. In the AI world, that opacity is fatal because an AI model is only as good as the data it learns from. If the data it can reach is partial, if it only sees the slices that certain leaders were willing to expose, then it learns a distorted picture of your business. and it will confidently give you answers that fit that distorted picture, not your actual strategy. You will have spent millions on a system that is fluent, fast, and subtly wrong. And you won't know it's wrong because the very blind spots that would tell you are the ones the data never covered. So when I say democratize the data, I'm not making a cultural nicety argument. I'm making a hard operational one. Data democratization is the precondition for AI that actually serves your strategy. Without it, you're not training a model, you're training a very expensive mistake. So, what do you do about it? Because it's easy to name a problem. Let me tell you what actually worked. First, and this is the uncomfortable one, you have to make it a leadership decision, not a technology rollout. The custody question has to be settled from the top explicitly. Someone with real authority has to say out loud in a room with all the barons in it, the data belongs to the enterprise, and access is a right to the work, not a privilege of the title. If that sentence doesn't get said by someone who can enforce it, nothing downstream works. Your data team will just get quietly starved of access. One polite, let me check with my group at a time. Second, and this is where a lot of transformation efforts get it wrong, you cannot walk in as the auditor. If your team shows up holding the data like a weapon, saying, look at all the waste we found in your area, every leader in the building will circle the wagons and you'll never get access again. So we did the opposite. We embedded. My team sat with the business units. We trained them. We handled the tooling for them. We took on skin in the game so that the visibility felt like partnership, not exposure. The savings we found were their wins, reported under their names. You make transparency safe or you don't get it at all. And third, you build the governance so it holds. Two levels, one working level close to the ground where the people actually using the data get help and get unblocked. And one leadership level where entire job is to clear the roadblocks, the access fights, the architecture gaps before they calcify. Because the resistance doesn't show up once and disappear. It shows up every quarter in a new form. And if there's no mechanism to keep clearing it, it wins by attrition. Now, here's the part that brings it back to what this show is really about. Why does any of this matter beyond internal tidiness? Because every one of those hidden broken processes, every duplication, every rework loop, every silo that no model was allowed to see, the customer feels it. The customer always feels it. The broken process shows up as the dropped handoff, the wait, the let me transfer you, the thing that should have worked and didn't. Broken processes are broken experiences. The data is just the only honest witness to where they are. So when you democratize your data, you're not just feeding a model. You're finally giving the organization the ability to see itself the way the customer already sees it. And that, an organization that can see its own truth, is the only kind of organization that can point AI at the right problems and trust the answers it gets back. The model was never the hard part. The hard part was always consent, getting an organization to agree to be seen. So here's what I will leave you with this week. Go look at your own AI ambitions, the roadmap, the pilots, the agents, everyone's excited about. And then ask the unglamorous question underneath all of it. Can the data actually move? Who right now in your organization is quietly acting like an owner of the data they only ever held in custody? Because that person, not the model, not the vendor, is the one who decides whether your AI succeeds or digital transformation succeeds. Sit with that this week. It's one of the ideas I dig into much more deeply in my book, CX First. This whole question of how strategy, systems, and the customer connect through the truth an organization is willing to face with itself. This has been Human-Centered Experience. I'm Hitesh Bagai. See you next week. Thanks for listening to my podcast. If you found this insightful, please subscribe, share, and check out my recent article on this topic on LinkedIn. As always, feel free to get in touch with me with comments, suggestions, and ideas. I'm Hitesh, and I'll see you next time.